Welcome to a new video by Pharos Technology. Today we're going to talk about styles in Microsoft Word. And you'll find the styles group on the Home tab right here in the center. And I want to pop it out, and when I click this down arrow here, it puts it here on the sidebar. And that's where I like to use it, and I like to have it available. It's currently sorted so that it puts normal at the top because that's the one you use the most of. Down here there's an options button in this window, and when I click on that options button, it allows me to make some modifications to the way this style sidebar appears. First off, it allows me to tell which ones to show. Like, for example, you know that can't be all of the styles that Microsoft Word has, so I can say show me all the styles, and when I click OK, it shows me this long list of other styles that have already been pre-made, ready to go. Headings all the way up down to level 9, titles, subtitles, emphasis, all kinds of different options. You can add new styles of your own if you want, like you have a particular font that you use for a particular focus in your writing. You can click plus here and you can add a style, give it a name. You can tell what paragraph, that it's going to be a paragraph style, although you can change this to be a character style or a table or list style. Generally, you'll use paragraph style. If you base it on the normal template, it'll just pick up all the attributes of the normal style first, and then you can modify beyond that. For the following paragraph, after you use this style, a lot of times you'll want to choose it going back to normal. Like all your heading styles, for example. You'll do your heading, and then when you hit enter, it'll go back to normal style. And this is where you choose which style it goes back to after you get done using your custom style. So in this way, you can add a custom style and do the things that you want to do with a particular style in your document. Now, I'm going to click OK. In the normal style here, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click modify, because you can change a particular style. And for example, if I was using APA format or MLA format for my papers and I was in school and I needed to make sure I adhered to those standards, I would want to come in here to my normal style and make those changes. So I would want to come down here and look first here. What it does is it says it's going to use the default font here, which is Calibri, and it's left justified. The line spacing is multiple spaces, 1.08 lines. So instead of just being single spaced, it's just a little bit more than single spaced. And after a paragraph, it's going to put 8 more points, which means it's going to put about a quarter of an extra line afterwards. Widow and orphan control is good. That allows you to not have 2 lines at the end of a page before the next paragraph starts. So what it does is it makes sure that 1 or 2 lines don't just stick out in the bottom of the paper and then you get the rest of the paragraph on the next page. Same with the next page too, is it'll try to squish it up into the previous page instead of putting it on the next page. I can modify a lot of the font items here. I can change it to 12 point here, for example. I can change it to bold, italics, or underline. For the normal font that's going to be most of my paper, I don't want to make it bold, italics, and underline for the whole paper, so I'll just leave those there. But changing it to 12 point, it might be advantageous. I like to write in 12 point rather than 11 point. I could change this to Times New Roman here, which is my preferred font over Calibri. I like the serifs, and Calibri font is a sans serif font, or without serifs. And that's on my video on fonts. You can talk about, I talk about serifs and not sans serif fonts. So now what I want to do is I can come down here. If that's not enough modification for my fonts, I can go here and bring up the whole font dialog, and it gives me some effects that I can use. And it gives me a little bit more control of a list here to see what else is on the list of choices. Bold, italic, underline is over here, and size here. A lot of the things that are duplicated on the others, but this whole section, this effects section, is different. So maybe you want to have a superscript font, and when you want to put in a superscript, you decide that you want to create a whole different font for that, you could do that here and modify it to that respect. Okay. So if I want to go into the paragraph and make modifications on the spacing that I mentioned in the previous screen, like for example, I don't want this extra spacing after a paragraph, especially in APA or MLA or Chicago format, I would change this to 0. I would put my line spacing at double so that it's exactly double. If I used multiple, here's an interesting thing, it puts it at 3, but if I put multiple at 2 and tabbed out of here, it's the same thing as double spacing. So that's what your multiple choice does, is it lets you determine how much spacing between them. Putting it at 3 puts 2 spaces between them. Putting it double skips 1 line, 1 space. Okay. So I can make modifications there. I can also, instead of these being block paragraphs with no indentation, I can tell it to do a first line indent. And if this is the way I want to set up my paper, I've made all those adjustments, I can click OK. And when I click OK here, it'll make it so. So you can see my indent mark here in my ruler. It shows that it's going to indent. And so this is the normal font now. Now the others that I use here, let's go to heading 1, for example. Now, heading 1 is based on the normal font, but now I've made the normal font indented. So I need to go to heading 1 then, and I want to go to paragraph, and I want to tell it not to first line indent because I want my heading 1 to be at the left. If I'm writing in APA or MLA or Chicago style, I'm not going to want to have a bunch of space between the headings and the paragraphs. I'm going to want it to be double spaced, yes, but I'm not going to want this space before that heading. I don't want it to jump down so much. So I can run that back to 0, and I've got my thing all set up. Now there's a problem with the font size too. APA wants 12-point font or 11-point font all the way through. It doesn't want different font sizes for your headings. So I'll readjust that to 12. And I can click OK here. And now my heading 1 is now, it's still blue, but heading 1 is now set up so that it looks at 12 point and such. Now, if I want to go in here and make sure that it's not blue because I missed that, for example, I can go back here, click automatic, click OK, and notice it changes back to blue. If I change this heading font after I've written the entire paper, it'll change it everywhere I use that in the entire paper. And I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's useful to you, and I hope you join me again. Thanks.